Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "This road isn't closed to me." So I work for my local government's road and infrastructure group. Project management engineering sort of things, and I was relatively green in my position at the time. We had had a few springs and summers with a lot of flooding issues, and one of them landed on my desk to deal with. The location was a typical two-lane highway in the middle of nowhere with grid road access every 2 miles. This particular location was full of non-draining hummocky terrain that would fill one low area and move on to the next one. This created a small lake a few feet deep over one of the low spots on the highway. The plan was basically to isolate the road using hydrodams, a giant plastic bladder filled with water, pump out the water near the highway, and place a crap ton of material down to build the road up to a passable state. This story takes place before any of that occurred, when we were on site talking about potential solutions. The highway was clearly signed with "road closed" signs and Jersey barriers at the closest grid road access locations, about 1.5 miles away from the site on the side that will matter to the story, and detour signs were present. In order to get past the signage and barriers, one had to make a few slow turns. There is no way anyone didn't know what was happening. During the discussion regarding what to do, one of the contractor's pieces of machinery was broken down and they were discussing that parts were on the way to fix it. A few minutes later, a small truck, Ford Ranger-sized, comes driving through the construction zone when I was away from the group checking something out. They stopped and asked if they could go through, and like a naive idiot I assumed it was parts for the machinery, so agreed. I watched in horror as the truck didn't stop at the gathered crowd near the machinery but very slowly and carefully waded its way through the lake and out the other side. The water was most of the way up the side of the truck, but he managed to get through without issue and continue on his way. A few minutes later, with the solution discussed and material needing to be ordered, I jump on the phone and step away from the group talking to call up a supplier. Basically, the group and some machinery are blocking one lane of travel, and I step away into the other lane. As I am talking to the supplier, a car very slowly makes its way through the signage and up to me. It's a man driving with a wife and kids in the car as well. I don't move. I could have, but I'm on the phone and I'm scared he won't make it through since the truck barely did. So I do my best to hand signal that he turn around and he can't go through. He shakes his head and indicates he is going straight through. I stay rooted where I am for a good 5 minutes discussing with my supplier what we need while trying to get this guy to understand not to drive through. His wife was obviously trying to do the same based on her reactions. But he waits me out. Eventually I finish my call, and give the man a questioning glance. He smiles in non-verbal acceptance that he has defeated me. I move out of the way. And he proceeds to drive his car directly into the lake, which obviously floods his engine and stops him dead. Everyone on site has a good laugh, and then they pull him out so he can call to get his car towed. I left shortly after, and not a word was actually exchanged between myself and the driver. He was quite embarrassed afterward, obviously. The next one is titled, "Don't Sue. We'll let you come onto our property to fix your sewer line." The house I grew up in was built on the side of a hill. Great views, but the geography posed some challenges for the city utilities, sewage in particular. Their solution was to put all the houses on the hill in what was called a shared line. Essentially, one big pipe ran through all of our backyards, just below the houses' basements. Effluent would flow out from the houses, into the shared pipe, and then down the hill to the city sewer line by the bottom-most house. When we moved in, we were at the highest point that it was possible to build on and still be part of that shared sewer line. But a few years later, someone bought a lot just over the crest of the hill and linked up with ours without being part of the planned community that had an HOA that took care of the sewer line, among other things. And in fact, they did so without the HOA's approval. And so for the next 2 decades, my family would be the subject of near-constant harassment over the state of the sewer. Their end of the line was lower than ours by just enough that it would stop flowing and clog, often backing up into their basement bathroom and shower. They'd accuse us of diverting our effluent to their line, because I guess we were some kind of plumbing wizards. Now the reason nobody built a house on that part of the hill during the original development was that the soil was unstable. Something hydrology related. Sure enough, over the years, that house would occasionally separate from the hill and slide down a couple of inches. But our neighbors had connections in the code enforcement agency, so the place never got condemned like it should be. They just had to shore it up and reconnect all the utilities. The thing is, the further down the house moved, the steeper the negative incline was from their sewer connection to our junction box, making the clogs and backups even worse. At one point, it got so bad that their sewer barely flowed. Some days, it got completely clogged. Somehow, this was our fault. They spent the next year calling us every time they tried to flush a toilet and excrements came out in their downstairs shower. They called a plumber, who said they had to redo their part of the shared line. And to do it, they'd have to bust through our 2-story masonry wall so they could get a backhoe onto our property and dig out the line. Of course, we had issues with this. We said no, you will not come onto our property and tear it up with a big piece of construction equipment. Hire human laborers or something. But instead, they hired lawyers who started slinging paper around. According to them, we were in violation of state law that specifically gave an implied easement granting a homeowner access through another's property to maintain their own. So we hired lawyers of our own, who said that we basically had a choice, we could win the case but pay a ton of money or just let it happen. Either way, we'd be screwed. But they pointed out one important fact, that 20-year-old masonry wall wasn't in the greatest of shape anyway, so a few months later, we presented them with a bill for $75,000 for the rebuilding of the wall, installation of a new set of stairs, replacement of the entire wrought iron fence that had separated the two properties, resodding, replacement of ornamental plants and shrubs, and some minor repairs to our sewer, which they had balked up while relaying their pipes. I'm not a general contractor, but my guess is that they could have hired pick and shovel labor to dig out that pipe and replace it with a new one for a fraction of that price. But no. They had to have a giant Caterpillar tread machine do it. They balked. But then we handed them a zero copy of the letter that their lawyers had sent us with pursuant to paragraph blah blah of the Common Code of blah blah blah, citing the next paragraph which stated that the person using the easement was 100% responsible for any damage that might be caused. They still balked, but my parents put a lien on their property that stayed there to the day they tried to sell, at which point they had to pay up or the purchaser's creditors wouldn't underwrite a mortgage. I think they had to pay interest too, but I'm not 100% sure about that. The next one is titled, "Why don't you just buy a bunch of pens and put them all over the house?" You got it, babe. A very minor malicious compliance story, but was reminded of it when packing up the house to move. So my husband works from home, and has a very tidy office. I work in a lab and so can't usually work from home, and since our house is small, I never really set up a workspace for myself. And to be honest, I am not the most organized person, so usually my belongings are found scattered all over the house. My husband once turned around the car when he realized that he forgot to make the bed, so my messiness is a challenge for him. Anyway, one day a few years ago while my husband was out, I had to sign something, couldn't find a pen in my bag, and so stole one from my husband's desk. A few hours later, the following conversation occurred. Husband: "Hey, did you take the blue pen off my desk?" Me: "Oh yeah, sorry." I rifle through the stack of crap on the kitchen table until I find it. "Here you go." Husband, slightly irritated: "I wish you wouldn't take my stuff, you're always losing things." Now I'm a little huffy, because while it's true that I lose things from time to time, we're talking about a 1-pound Papermate, not a Mont Blanc. Well, you're the only one with an office full of office supplies, I don't even have any place to keep my own stuff. Husband: "Well, why don't you just get a bunch of pens and put them all over the house with the rest of your stuff, then even you'll be able to find them." And then he stalked back off to his office. Okay, fine, I think, let's do it your way. I hop on Amazon and, oh look, 10 pens for £5? Let's get 3 sets in each color. Plus a few pen holder cylinders and a pack of Sharpies for good measure, because you can never have enough Sharpies. Add to cart and confirm. The next day, my malicious package fortuitously arrived while my husband was out of the house. When he returned home, he was greeted by a lovely bouquet of pens in the entryway. He was soon to discover a similar bouquet in the kitchen, on the mantel, table at the top of the staircase, bedroom dresser, and bathroom cabinet. This is a small 2-bedroom house, so pens had suddenly become the primary design motif. His only comment was an exasperated "really," to which I just grinned in reply. He did move the one out of the bathroom, but the others stayed where they were, and actually were pretty handy. I have not needed to borrow any of his pens since, so I like to think we both won. The next one is titled, You Want Toys Only? Sure, I can do that. So my work was having a toy drive, and if you donated a toy you got a ticket to go in a work raffle. You win work gear and clothes. I talked to the manager and said that I could crochet beanies and scarves, and he said that they will allow it since I didn't have the money to buy anything and my grandma gave me a bunch of yarn. So each morning waiting for work to start I would sit and crochet. Some older Indian women from India passed by and saw my stuff, and started complimenting me about my work while talking to each other in their first language, don't quite know what language. I thought I was making friends talking to them and showing them my stuff. Each day I donated an item and got a ticket. One day after I got 10 tickets I get told by the office, hey, some people have been complaining about the stuff you are donating not being toys, so we can't give you any more tickets for it. I was confused but said okay and went to work. I still kept making them and donating them but didn't get tickets for it. I found out later by a friend who is also Indian and speaks the same language that the women did, and found out they weren't complimenting me, they insults and made fun of me. 2. My face. And I didn't even know it. They were the ones who complained about me. I was upset when I got home that day. I remembered a design that my grandma taught me, which I knew that they would accept. When I came to work the next day, I had a handcrafted crocheted stuffed bear, a toy I made myself. They accepted it and I got a ticket. I wasn't able to make any more since it took all the yarn I had. I don't start conversations anymore with those ladies because they lost my respect, but I'm still polite and work with them. The raffles isn't until the end of the month, so who knows if I will win. The next one is titled, I can take pictures of whoever I want. A previous city job of mine was training lifeguards at the local pool. This was the nicest one in town, and we had much higher certifications than Red Cross pools. There was the manager, older guy, wasn't usually there, assistant manager, a female friend of mine that was younger, and the trainer, me. I was 21 at the time, looking like the rest of the 16-17-year-old guards. One day doing the rounds making sure everyone is getting water, doing okay etc., I see a man with a fancy camera taking pictures of kids. Not just a dad taking an iPhone picture of his children, but like a 40-year-old man walking around taking lots of pictures of lots of different kids. Oh. Not in my pool. Hey dear Mr. Sir. Can I ask why you're taking pics of all the children? Oh, I work for the city, this is all for the website. Cool, can I see your badge? If you're out in public you get a very obvious green lanyard with your picture and title. Oops, sorry, must have left it in the car. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave and go grab that for me. And if you could get the waivers for the kids' families too, since you're using their pictures for advertising, that would be peachy. I'm a city employee and I don't need waivers. Everyone is in public so I'm good. RC, it looks like you're just taking pictures of kids though. And yes, you do need waivers. They might all be outside, but they all paid to be here. And if you don't get consent, then use the pictures, the city could get sued. So, please leave to get your ID badge and waivers. Listen here kid, why don't you get an adult and we can figure things out? Whoa, okay, I'm legally an adult and that hurt my feelings. Only the assistant manager was in, and their main job is scheduling, paperwork, ordering stuff and the like. Not dealing with this. So I called the cops. Hey, it's me from the pool, there's some scary man here taking pictures of kids, and he doesn't have any sort of ID badge. I'm scared daddy, will you make him go away? Cops showed up within 2 minutes, found the guy, and escorted him out because he didn't have his ID. Waved at him so good as he left. Nice. The next one is titled, You Can't Take the Dirty Dishes to the Kitchen, Fine. You can have them. I used to work in a soccer stadium in a VIP box area running food and beverages from kitchens, cool rooms to the boxes. So the stadium was going through a bit of renovations and therefore they built bunch of marquees on scaffolding for the guests. Because it was a temporary structure we didn't have a kitchen attached like all the other boxes, and all the food needed to be brought from the kitchen from the opposite side of the stadium. So once the guests finished eating I have to take all the dirty dishes stacked about 6 feet high on bread crates all the way back to the kitchen on the other side of the stadium, where the dishwashers are. To go to this kitchen you have to take a lift to the second floor and go into a VIP bar area and do a sharp U-turn into the kitchen. Malicious compliance. We had a manager, let's call him David. He took care of that section and the VIP guests. He had spiky hair, overly self-confident, and was a know-it-all type dude. So I took all the dirty dishes halfway around the stadium, took the lift, and was going to push the cart into the VIP bar like I have done 100 times, and I meet David. He was like, "Where are you going?" I told him taking the dishes to the kitchen. And then he was like, "No, you can't take it into the VIP bar." I'm like, "I'll be in there for 2 seconds and will be inside the kitchen." He was still, "No, you can't take it," firmly. I was tired of walking all the way across and wasn't going to argue with him, so I said fine and left the cart with dirty, smelly dishes stacked to a height of a human right outside the entrance to the bar, because in the stadium there is not much space to move around. And I left and told my supervisor what happened. So, all night, all the VIP guests, the shirt sponsors, club shareholders, everyone got into the lift to go to the bar, and when the door opened, greeted with huge stack of unwashed dishes. Next week my supervisor called and say to me, "You can take the dishes into the bar to take to the kitchen from now on, no problem." Apparently poor dishwashers had to wash the dishes early into the morning hours after everyone had left. The next one is titled, "Sure, don't listen to the guys who do this job for a living." Years ago, I used to work as a medical biller for a surgery center. The administrator who ran the place knew that I worked construction with my father as well on my off times, doing remodeling and building houses. As such, she commissioned us to do some work for her at her personal home. It was small projects, really: installing a new garbage disposal, installing a new mailbox, installing a projector in the ceiling. Easy stuff. Now, before I get into the main part of this story, I must tell you, she was very stingy with money. We had an autoclave that needed servicing at work, and she refused to pay for the workers' travel time of 2 hours for a 30-minute job. She refused to pay a lot of the medical equipment bills until she was threatened with collection notices or refusal to send any future items. She even told us to not waste patient bands who were no-shows, and instead place another patient's sticker over the old ones, which could be a HIPAA violation, but she didn't care. This is important to know. One day, she came to me and asked if we could take a look at her flooring in her exercise room. She had said the water heater had busted, and as a result from sitting too long, her flooring was swollen from being waterlogged. So my dad and I went over there to assess the situation, and determined that we could do the job for a total of $400 plus material. We weren't out to strike it rich, but really to help the community by providing quality service at a low rate. She was happy with the price, and told us she would pick out the new wood she wanted laid down. We told her that she would need about 100 slats for the repair we were going to do, as well as new plywood for the base. She seemed okay with that. She went to Los Angeles one weekend, and came back with material that she wanted to use for the flooring. Only, she had about 30 of the requested 100 to do the job properly. On top of that, she did not think that she needed to get a new sheet of plywood. We informed her that the old plywood was moldy, swollen, and would only cause problems down the road. She eventually agreed to purchase the plywood replacement, but she was not going to purchase more wooden slats. Instead, she demanded that we use most of what was already there, yes, the swollen pieces, but to tear up the slats in the little alcove that was not hit with water damage and place the damaged ones there. We did everything we could to convince her this was a bad idea. We told her that wood doesn't magically shrink when it dries out. We told her that joining the swollen pieces with non-swollen pieces would be near impossible. We told her that the moisture would invite more trouble down the road and provide for an uneven floor setting. She was having none of it. She knew better, and did not want to spend more than she already had. So, we went to work. We tore up the old pieces, saved the best ones, and started laying down the new pieces first. Then we tore up the pieces in the alcove and matched them with the new pieces, too. Per her instructions, we placed the least damaged slats in the alcove, doing everything we could to make it look presentable. Lo and behold, though, it was all uneven. It raised in spots. It had gaps in spots. It didn't fit quite right. But that's what she wanted done, and that's what she was going to get. Despite our best efforts, we were absolutely shocked when she said that the flooring looked horrible, despite us telling her that it would look horrible with the damaged slats. Okay, no, we really weren't shocked at all. She demanded that we tear up the floor again and fix it the right way. We told her, sure, but you'll have to pay us another $400, plus get the other slats that we requested. She got livid, said we were horrible people, and refused to continue on. The next day, I quit the job after she came in and badmouthed my dad in front of my coworkers. But I heard from my coworkers that she had to hire someone else to do the job, and it cost her $1,200 for the labor alone, plus another $400 in wooden slats. All because she was so certain she knew better than the guys who have been doing the work for years. The last one is titled, "The counter is for the protection of the customer, not the salesperson." Many years ago, one of my friends worked for a local small business. His boss was a taciturn man who didn't believe that the customer was always right, and didn't care if his employees' friends hung out, as long as the work was completed. I happened to be visiting when a particularly nasty customer came in. I don't know what he was on, but the insults just came spilling out. My friend and his coworker E were losers who worked retail because they were too stupid to do anything else, homophobic slurs, etc. My friend ignored him, while E just nodded along for a while before saying, "Dude, if you're not going to buy anything, just leave." This resulted in more insults and expletives before the customer made the crucial mistake of saying, "You're lucky you can hide behind the counter, you pussy." "Oh," E said calmly, "is that so?" "Yeah," said the customer. "You know what would happen if you came out to face me. Come on. I dare you to come out." "Okay." With that, E reached beneath the register, pulled out a freaking cattle prod, and came out from behind the counter. The next thing I know, I'm hearing the click 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 of the activated cattle prod, followed by the customer screaming, "What the hell? Are you crazy?" "No, dude," E said calmly. "I just wanna find out what happens when a pussy comes out from behind the counter." E not only chased the guy out, but chased him down the street. My friend said that particular dude never came back. Thanks for listening.